Welcome to our weekly coaching live in the Bold and Successful Women's Business Group, Women's Business Owners Facebook group. My name is Heather Cameron, and today we're going to talk about how to nail your client's journey. And I'm really excited about this topic because there's kind of so much dimension to this, and such a key part of your business model is really getting your head wrapped around the journey someone takes from being a stranger to becoming a client. So my expertise and how I work with my clients is I help women create their client attraction getting strategy. So even not attraction, their client getting strategy, to really simplify it and make it yours so that it's working for you 24/7 to bring in and create the business that you deserve and you want. So let me just make sure I'm live. I'm on my phone. I always have my computer over here so I can see your messages. And I just want to make sure I'm live because Facebook puts me live in the weirdest places sometimes. So give me a sec. If you're listening live, say hi. If you're listening to the replay, do hashtag replay. I see myself, so I am live. Nope, that's not me. I was seeing my old live. There you go. I'm live. So if you have any questions, post them in the comments. If you're listening to the replay, do hashtag replay. This is a real key topic that we all need to revisit, to create, to focus, and keep our eye on. And it's such an important thing to think about, which is nailing your customer journey. And I want to give a definition of what I mean by customer journey, because it is used in many different ways. So some people use customer journey in the journey somebody takes from the moment they become your customer to how they exist and continue to be your customer. And other people use customer journey in the journey that a customer is taking on their own. And I kind of want to combine them. So what I mean by customer journey is somebody is unaware of you, you're not aware of them, they go from that stranger to becoming a paying client. And there's two sides to the customer journey that I want you to consider when you're working through this exercise or whenever you're looking at this. There's the customer journey phase where it's the emotions they're going through. So it's completely from their point of view. So what is the customer journey of someone who hasn't bought or done the transformation that you have? What's their journey? So where are they currently, which often we talk about is pain, and where do they want to be? And then how are they going to journey through that? It's a good thing to understand how customers go from being in a place of needing, wanting, desiring, wanting to move away from something, so pain to pleasure, to actually taking an action to do something about it. And then from taking that action to actually putting money on the table and buying it, and then doing the work and the transformation. That's their side of the journey. But what I want to focus on today is the customer journey between you and them. So this is where you are providing moments of stimulation, moments of information, moments of content, moments of offers, moments of sales, moments of calls, whatever it is that you do to move someone and to do that. But you have to really understand how it happens so that you can put the right content in the right place at the right time. And that's why it's such an important thing to map out your customer journey and to really think about this. So, I'm going to give you some parameters today to talk about what I mean by customer journey, but I encourage you to take out a piece of paper and really think about this, because you write different content for, I'm sorry, I'm getting my video has been, we'll see if I come back. Okay. I don't know why. I keep getting my video's been paused. So we might not be working very well today. So hopefully this is going on okay. Hopefully the replay is okay and that you guys are able to capture this. So if you're on live, say hi. Facebook has a sometimes puts me in different places. It's looking really blurry over there. So if I'm very blurry, I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on right now. I have a habit of having too many things opened, and I might just be pushing the bandwidth of my computer. So customer journey. So what I want to talk about with customer journey is thinking about the content that you create. Think about the interactions that you have during the customer journey from stranger to paid client. And each moment in this customer journey, you want to think about strategically what content you have. So the first stage of the customer journey is they don't know about you and you don't know about them. So that's stage number one. They've never seen anything. They've never done anything. Hi, Kim. Yes, it's blurry. Let me try and shut down a few things. Like I said, I have a habit of opening way too many windows, and that might be my issue. I just shut down the wrong thing. Give me one sec. Voice is great though. Well, that's good. My voice is good, but I'm blurry. So let me just try this again. See if I can unblurry myself. We're going to shut down a bunch of things and hopefully that'll help. There we go. Give me 1 sec. Thanks, Kim, for being here. Did that? Let's see if that helps. I just have to bring Facebook back up. We'll see if that helps. Yeah, I know it's getting better. Okay, that would be me having too many windows opened. It's a bad habit. Much better. There you go. That was my see, you can push your bandwidth by having too much open on your computer. So now I'm just trying to find myself again so that I can respond to your comments. Give me 1 sec. It's not letting me find my own video. Gotta love Facebook sometimes. I'm still there though, right, Kim? There we are. Okay. So I'm back and I'm not blurry. Yay. So what I want to talk about is customer journey of where we go from when a customer doesn't know you and you don't know them. So that's the unaware phase. And then how do we get from an unaware phase to actually becoming a customer? Yes, Kim, don't keep too many things open. To actually becoming a customer. So in that unaware phase, where they're not aware of you and you're not aware of them, in that moment or in that phase, that's when your content and you're posting content to attract them, to grab their curiosity. So when they're in the unaware phase, they are listening. So if they weren't looking for the transformation that you offer, if they weren't for some reason, consciously or unconsciously, looking for some sort of help in the area of your products or services, they would just breeze by your content. Now, you've all been in groups where you read content and you just breeze by a whole bunch because we're not listening to it. So when they're in the stranger, they're unaware of you and you're unaware of them, they are starting to think about whatever topic is you're interested in. Does that make sense? So they're starting to think about it. So your content that you're creating at that moment is you're trying to draw them in to read your content. So you're trying to evoke curiosity. You're trying to create connection and understanding so that you're painting a picture between connecting with them and understanding them and creating authority type posts. So showing your authority, sharing your authority. So you're combining those. So you're going from curiosity. You want to connect and say, yes, I understand you. And you're also creating authority posts to show where they can go. So in that moment, that's typically where you're posting, not inside a group like this, because they already know me at this point. But when you're posting in other groups or you're sharing blog content or you're speaking somewhere, it doesn't really matter where that is. There's a phase where you want to grab their attention. And that's the type of content you want to post regularly. So that's the unaware stage. The next stage that comes up is that they are aware of you, but you're not aware of them. So there are tons of people on Facebook who are lurking. Tons of people who read content and you have no idea they're reading your content, particularly if you're posting in other groups. If you have a blog, you have no idea who's landing and reading your blog. If you're posting on Instagram or any of these open medias, LinkedIn, you don't know who's reading your content. So you always have to write content and put content out there like somebody is reading it. So they've moved from that stranger phase where they don't know you at all, you don't know them, to they know you, they're aware of you. They're following you, maybe they're listening to you, maybe they're engaging in your posts, but you're not aware of them. So you want to think about that. So the same content that you're writing to get people to be aware, you're still using that same content and information to build up the know, like, and trust phase. So you're not aware of them, but they're listening. And that's an important phase. And that's where a lot of business comes from that, right? Where I've had people who I really wasn't aware of all of a sudden reach out to me because they become aware of me at that point and they're interested in it. So our content and our marketing strategies and everything there is about building awareness and moving them to the next step. And that next step is when you become aware of them. And so a question to ask yourself is, when do you become aware of somebody who might want to buy from you, who might eventually be a client? What's that moment that you become aware of them? And that's a really important moment to recognize, because that's when you truly take an active role. So when you're posting content, you're active, but it's not individual. So when you become aware of them, you're stepping up your role of building that know, like, and trust factor and moving them along your customer journey. Now, here's some ways that you can become aware of somebody. Let's say you post in a group. And I saw Amanda go by a minute ago. She did a happy face. So Amanda was on here a minute ago. She's a great example of, I've followed Amanda for a long time, but she wasn't aware of me until I commented on a few of her posts. So she had some really good content. I commented on a few of her posts, and we started a dialogue through my comments on her posts. That's how she became aware of me, right? So that's a moment where you become aware of somebody, is when they actually give you a like. That's a kind of a really small aware. When they comment or interact on your information, that's another point where you become aware of them. And then you take responsibility at that point to start to nurture that relationship. You can't nurture the relationship of somebody you don't know yet, right? So when is that moment you become aware of them? If you have a free offer or a freebie and somebody downloads that and joins your email list, then you become aware of them. And a lot of people don't pay enough attention to that moment, but you become aware of them when they download information. When they join your email list and they start interacting with you, you become aware of them. And at that point, you can start to nurture that relationship. If you have a Facebook group, so when people join your Facebook group, that's a moment, that's a great moment where you become aware of them. They're interested in the topic of your Facebook group, hopefully. You actually can ask them some questions so you can get some information about what's important to them. And you could, when somebody joins your Facebook group, and lots of people do this, you could reach out and DM them, send them a direct message and welcome them to the Facebook group and say, hey, really glad you joined, if there's anything you need to know. So those are the moments that you become aware. And in your sales process, you may have other moments that you become aware of somebody. But really think about, when do you become aware that somebody is listening to you, somebody is following you, somebody is interacting with you? What are those moments that you become aware? And in each platform of social media, it doesn't matter how you're marketing, it's going to be different. So, for example, on Instagram, it's different when you realize that somebody's aware of you. They start following you. That's kind of the most aware point. They start to follow you, but they could still not follow you and like a post of yours. So Instagram has less privacy in that respect. So you become aware of them at different phases. So you have to really think about, where's your main marketing energy going, and when does somebody become aware of you? Does that make sense? If you're on live, if you're listening to the replay, #replay, let me know. Does it make sense? Can you think about in your own process where people go from that either unaware of you or lurking and reading your content to being aware of you? And what you do at that point, right? That's a really, really important point for you to think about. How do you want to manage those people who become aware of you? Yes, it makes sense. Thanks, Kim. So then we get to the aware. Aware doesn't mean they're a lead. Some people will call awareness a lead. I don't, because being aware of somebody and you being aware of them is just the beginning of the relationship. You then really need to think about what becomes a lead. What is a stronger lead for you? Or a prospect. People use different languages for this, prospect, lead. I believe that leads can be defined and should be defined differently per each channel, right? So if somebody sent you a referral, for example, you become aware of them about the same time they become aware of you often, right? Somebody had a conversation with somebody. Let's say Kim and I were having a conversation and Kim referred me to an amazing home decorator. Typically speaking, we both come aware of each other at the same time. Kim might send off an email and say, hey, I want to give you guys a warm introduction. Heather's looking for an interior decorator, and Sue, or whatever her name is an interior decorator. So in a referral, we both come aware at the same time, typically. Maybe the other person's had a bit of time to research, but that's a very strong lead. Excuse me. That's a strong lead. But on social media, leads are not as strong as quickly. It takes time is irrelevant, actually. It just takes a need and a want to make those leads move to prospects more. So, for example, when I run challenges, people who sign up for the challenges are absolutely leads and prospects because they've agreed to get engaged and they've agreed to invest time in running the challenge. So people who sign up to a challenge, attend a masterclass, do any of the things that require them to really interact with me, those are going to be stronger leads and prospects than somebody who just joins my email list. So you each get to define, really think about what makes somebody a lead and a prospect, because those are the people that you're going to want to give even more attention to. So we went from stranger, they don't know you, you don't know them, to them following you, but you're not aware of them, to you becoming aware of them because they start interacting with you. So you start nurturing that relationship. To when do they become a lead? And so this is the journey somebody takes through all of our, sometimes this journey can happen in a matter of days, right? Sometimes it can happen in a matter of a half an hour, right? But all of those phases of the journey happen in setting up our clients, how somebody becomes. And then the next phase from when they go from being interested or from being a prospect or a lead is they become a client. And how does that happen? How does somebody actually become a client? Right? For a lot of coaches, when you're first starting out or you're just selling one-on-one, that moment happens with a phone conversation. We get on, we do a discovery call, we have a chat, we make sure that it's the right working relationship, and that then becomes the moment where somebody becomes a client. For people who sell products and services, they may move through that stage by going onto your website and buying your product or service, or if you're selling a program. The moment that they move from being a lead or a prospect may not require your interaction, at least may not require one-on-one interaction initially. You see a lot of group coaching programs sold that way, where somebody does a masterclass and they make an offer to a group program, and that's the process. They move somebody from prospect lead to client is by making them offer, sending them off to a website. They go to that website, they opt in, they subscribe, they pay you money some way or other, and they move from that to being a client. So think about each of these stages and which is the stage you need to work the most on. So when you have, first of all, map out your customer journey, right? Think about where are you building the awareness? So is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it through your website? Is it through speaking, podcast? It doesn't really, there are many different ways to do that, but where are you connecting with people from stranger for both of you to them becoming aware of you? And understanding that that relationship is where we need to spend a fair amount of money, time and energy. Then when they move from unaware to aware, when does that happen? How do you become aware of them? Almost more importantly than how they become aware of you, all of that social media trust building stuff is how they become aware of you. How do you become aware of them? And are you making it easy for them to pop their head up and say, hey, I'm interested, or hey, I want to know more, or comment and become aware of them? So what's that moment and what do you need to do there? How well is that working for you? Because there are a lot of women I meet who will tell me they're the best kept secret. So if they're the best kept secret, then they've got to work on that beginning, the unaware aware stage, right? If they feel they're the best kept secret and people aren't hearing about their products and services, then they're not building that awareness, and people will talk about that as branding, brand awareness, all of it's the same. We want people to be aware of us. And it takes work to do that. It takes commitment, consistency, and work. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be time consuming, but you need a system that, and when I mean system, I don't actually mean some automated system. If you can make it automated, all the more power to you, but you have to start to create the system before you automate it. So you need to have some consistency about creating that awareness. And that's really when people talk about social media consistency and being consistent in your marketing, you're focused on creating that awareness initially. How do you create that awareness? What are you doing for that? And then when do you become aware of them? So I know, Kim, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you know in your own stuff when you become aware of somebody else following you? Have you ever thought of that? And if you're on live, say hi. If you're listening to the replay, answer that question as well. Do you know when people become aware of you? When you become aware of them, sorry. So for me, if somebody comes into my Facebook group, I know that I become aware of them at that moment in time. If somebody joins my email list and subscribes, I become aware of them at that time. If somebody signs up to a challenge or a masterclass, I become aware of them at that time. If somebody comments on a post, I become aware of them at that time. And so for each of us, it's going to be different, but really think about when do you become aware of them? Because that's when you start the responsibility of nurturing that awareness. How do you nurture that? How do you build it? And then the first phase is making sure that you're putting the right information out broad enough to capture your audience in the right places. That's that unaware phase. You're trying to put out enough information to bring in people and make them aware. Kim, they comment a post. That's how I am aware of me. Sign up in a group page. Exactly, right? So yeah, they get aware. You're aware when they sign up, when they make a comment, and think about how you respond to that. Right? I've commented on a bunch of people's posts. Like I can see this from both sides. Where I've been in a group and somebody's posting some really good information and I comment on their post and I don't get anything back. So they've lost an opportunity. I'm aware of what they're talking about. I come in and I make a comment and they don't bother to come back and respond to that comment. They don't bother to try and nurture that. And other people, and I mentioned Amanda a minute ago, Amanda is someone who I follow on and off. And she bothered to reach out for me. She bothered to say, hey, I've seen you. You know, she had responded to a few comments that I made. And then she bothered to reach out for me and create a conversation and say, hey, you know, I'm aware of you, basically. I mean, I could find the words, but basically saying, hey, I'm aware of you. And how are you doing? Not selling, because if you go into that moment and sell, it's not going to work. Just, hey, thank you. I'm aware of you. I need to be more focused in my response. Great, Kim. I think we can all get more focused in our response. And that's why I wanted to do this particular topic today, because it's making you, I'm going to use the word aware. It's making you think about, how can I be more focused in my response? How can I have an open-ended response? Sometimes is a good way to do it. And I'll tell you, if your response is open-ended and it encourages them to respond back, and then you create a conversation, one of the benefits of doing that is Facebook's going to like you more. Facebook likes interaction. They want to foster interaction. So Facebook algorithms are going to like you more when you continue to have a conversation in a thread than if you just respond back and they respond and that's the end of it. And you can take them off and direct message them if that makes sense, but you want to do it in a way that's respectful and not pushy, because that doesn't work either. So you've got to find that balance. Open-ended, that's a good point. Yes, any coach should know open-ended questions are so much better than closed-ended questions. Basic coach training is to really ask open-ended questions. And if you're ever typing a question and it has a yes or no answer, always try and think of how you can flip it to open-ended questions. Now, sometimes yes and no are great. In Facebook land, quick answers like that are good. But when you want to foster the relationships, you want to get out of the thing. And sometimes, honestly, it's not easy. I've had a few people respond to posts and I'm like, how do I answer this to foster a conversation? Sometimes it's just really not possible. It would be, it's not that it's not possible. It would make the conversation awkward because of the way the comment was written. So sometimes you can't do that, but you're still aware of that person, right? And you can think about, you know, are they commenting on other posts? Is this somebody that I need to reach out to? Yes, I know, just in context, sometimes it doesn't always occur to me. Would love to see an example of that. When you mean an example of an open-ended question or flipping a yes or no question from that one, which one do you mean? And sorry, Kim, there's always a bit of a delay, so I'm not sure which example you want to see of it. But yeah, sometimes the more you're aware of somebody, the more you say, oh my God, they've commented on like 3 or 4 of my posts. They must be interested. Let's see. Because face it, sometimes people are commenting on our posts to make us one of their customers. They're customer hunting, right? So we have to, balance. Is this someone who looks and feels like one of our high quality clients? Is this someone who we want to be aware of and who could potentially become a lead? Right? So that awareness has to come with some critical thinking, right? And that's why knowing who your niche is, who your ideal clients are, is such an important phase of this, that you have to know who they are. Because if somebody's commenting on your posts and they're not your ideal clients, then you're not going to want to foster that relationship in the sense of moving them towards being a lead or a prospect. So thinking about that awareness phase and your responsibility in that phase is really important. So that's a key. Those are the moments, and that's why I wanted to do this again. Those are the moments we take thought and control in our content, because we can do what I call shotgun content, which is we're throwing content out there, we're doing quotes, we're doing, being visible on social media, but it's not purposeful. And so I want you to create great content and do it purposefully, because then your content's going to work for you. It takes the same energy to create really good content with a purpose as it takes to create kind of shotgun content. Just on a comment, I think I was just realizing that if I'm not doing that, it's because it doesn't feel natural. As a coach, it does. In a coaching context, it does. In the light post, it doesn't necessarily feel like a natural flow. That's very true. It doesn't always feel natural. And that's what I mean by, and sometimes, Kim, we can make it feel more natural by the quality of our posts, right? So if it doesn't feel natural, then ask yourself, when you go back and look at the post, did the post put the right information to get them to put the right question or the right comment, right? Am I putting enough content to do that? And sometimes you can't create the conversation. Absolutely. Sometimes their comments don't allow for you to do that in a natural way. But often, for example, if you put a post out there that's talking about, I just did a post on curiosity, on how valuable curiosity is and how important curiosity is to a business. And I had it on Instagram and somebody wrote, "You nailed it," right? And I'm like, okay, like you said, Kim, it doesn't feel natural. How do I answer back to "you nailed it"? I could have answered back, because I didn't do this, but I could have answered back and saying, "Thanks so much. What was the most prevalent point to you? If I nailed it, what was the most resilient? What was the most point that made the most sense for you? Or where, have you had the most trouble doing this?" I could have asked a question. So I kind of went to the place that you're mentioning where it didn't feel natural to answer back. And now that I think about it, because this was just earlier this morning and I didn't answer back, so now I have to go back and do it. Now that I think about it, I could have asked a question, "Thanks. How did this resonate the most with you? Where was courage an issue? Where did you have to tap into your courage more?" So I could have asked better questions on that post. Instagram's another little different beast, but I could have asked a better question. So sometimes that's on us again, because we're the ones in control at that moment. It's kind of where we take control a little bit, inviting them to qualify their kudos, so to speak. Exactly. Right? There's so many ways that we can do it, but it's recognizing that there's a slight flip in our relationship at that moment, right? When they're aware of us, but we're not aware of them, they're in 100% control of that relationship in many respects. We can put out really high quality content, but they get to choose whether to listen to it, watch it, read it, or not. We don't know. We just have our responsibility is to put out the best content that we possibly can that brings people into our customer journey. But the moment they start to interact with us, it starts to become a relationship. It starts to have that element of how can we have a better conversation. It's kind of like party talk in a way. Kim, if we were at a party and we were, going to the bar and there was somebody we didn't know and they said something, then we have to think about what that conversation is to foster it. Well, we're doing this a little more purposeful, right? We're trying to think of what is the next question we would logically ask somebody. Doesn't mean that they're going to respond. It just means they're learning that you're also interested in them. And maybe that's a way to think about it for all of us, is that at that moment, we're going to demonstrate that we see value in them, that we are interested in them. And when you do it authentically with that moment, it becomes less salesy and it becomes more the human connection that you need, that then moves them to that next opportunity. Whether you're taking them off and you start a conversation in direct messaging, whether they come and join your group because that makes sense, whether they interact with an event that you have going on, whether they go to your website, you want to create that conversation. You want to start to show them that you're interested in them as well. And I think when we reframe it that way, it becomes a lot easier to create the conversation. At least it would for me. And I'm thinking that through as I say this, because I'm going back to those 2 comments this morning that I didn't answer. And I realized I could foster a better relationship by showing that I'm curious to them and that I'm interested in them and that I value the fact that they took the time to make a comment. And that makes sense. I see you seeing me and want to see more of you. Exactly. Thank you for that comment, Kim. I had to think about that one. Kim used little eyes for this. I see you seeing me and want to see more of you. Exactly. It's exactly what it is. It's a human connection. Yes, we're businesses, and yes, they can be our clients, but that's the moment that we get to play in that human connection that makes people interested into the next phase. So you have the first phase, which is you're putting content out to draw people in, and then you're creating the human connection at that moment when you become aware of them. And then you think about how do you move them to a lead and a prospect, which is what events and challenges, or getting them on a call, inviting them if they make sense. So maybe you have a conversation with them and it makes sense to get on a call and discuss something with them if you're in the coaching world. That's why having paths that people can take, so they get to know you, they like your answer, they come back, and maybe they go look at your profile and they download your freebie. Or they're following you and they realize you're going to have an event and they start to participate in that event. Or they're just following you and they see that you offer a sale, because you should be selling at least 30% of the time or 20% of the time. So they start to follow you. And the more you interact with them, of course, in Facebook land, the more you're going to show up in their feed. Excuse me. That's true on Instagram. That's true on LinkedIn. So the more that you do that, the more they're going to show up in your feed. So the more that you can create the relationship, the more they're going to see things that you offer, so they can move themselves to lead and prospects and to be a client. And you can move them, if it makes sense, to have them off in a conversation with it, direct messaging, or if you book your calls, Kim, I don't know how you onboard people, but if you onboard people by having a call, then you can think about strategically building that relationship to move them to a call or to move them to a discussion. So it's about thinking about each of these stages and recognizing the content that you put out and how you bring people in is how each of these stages work, right? This is an example doing what I'm doing right now. Everyone in my group is aware of me, hopefully. They joined my group. They're aware of me, right? And so this is content that's building that know, like, and trust, that's offering value to them. There's no offer. You know, if you want to follow or understand this more, you want to book out your customer, or you want to figure out how to map out your customer journey, then you can book a call and we can get on and chat about it. That's the most sell I'm going to do in this. So this moment is I'm aware of everybody in my group and I want to give value so they get to know, like, and trust me. And then when I do make an offer or I do have an event, they're aware of me. Now, not everybody in the group is on. There's only Kim on here. There's been a few people coming and going. What always amazes me about lives is how many people watch the replay, right? So yes, I'm live now, but there'll be a lot more people who watch this as a replay. And there's a lot of lurkers in this phase as well. So there's a lot of people who will watch this. They won't comment. I won't actually necessarily know who of this group chooses to watch this video. I will know that they watched it by numbers, but I won't know who actually watched it unless they come on live and comment with their name. That's why people do put a hashtag replay, because it makes us more aware of who's engaging with our content. That's the reason why we talk about hashtag replays, say that you're live. All of these techniques you see people using, it's so that we can become aware of who's listening to our content. We can become aware of who's interacting more with us, and we can give them attention, or we can make them more aware of things. So there's a reason for these things like hashtag replay, all those kind of things. But I am aware of everybody in my group, but I'm not aware of everybody who watches it. So we still have the lurkers through all phases of this. I can run a challenge. I'll give a great example, actually. I ran a challenge at the end of December. And it was a great challenge. There was a great number of people. Lots of people were interactive with it. I had one person reach out to me who I was completely unaware that they were participating in the challenge. I knew they signed up for it, but they weren't on any of the live videos. They weren't commenting. They weren't doing anything. They didn't show up for the masterclass. They watched everything on replay. Then they reached out, booked a call, and became a client. So that unawareness still progressed. I was aware of them in the sense that they were part of a group. So they signed up for the challenge. But I wasn't aware of how engaged they were, and I wasn't aware of how they were naturally moving through my process to move from somebody who signed up for a challenge to becoming a client. They didn't need to interact on a daily basis. So there's lurkers all the way through this process. It's just we know that there are different phases of lurkers, if that makes sense. And I know I've been there too. I've been a lurker and then all of a sudden become a client for somebody because I need to process. I'm a process person. I need to work things out. So I have been a lurker and then become a client of somebody's because I was listening and I was able to absorb and come to a conclusion. On the other hand, there'll be really active people in those steps as well. So you're going to have lurkers throughout the whole thing. And then they become a client. Kim as well. So yeah, we can become lurkers for a long time. I've had people on my list who have been there for several years and all of a sudden they put up their hand and they say, yep, I'm ready to work with you. I'm ready to do work. So they have to be ready. And that's what I mentioned at the beginning. There's two sides to customer journey. There's what we've been talking about our relationship with the customer, but then there's also their own personal journey. How does somebody move from needing to change something or wanting to buy something, it's either a need or a want, how do they move from the need or the want to actually buying, right? Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Allergy season, how do they move from the need or want to actually buying? That's their personal journey. You want to be there when they're going through that journey with the content creation and the events and being aware of each of those moments. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what I wanted to talk about today, was really highlighting this. It's kind of a deep topic in that we can go deep on each single one of these. But if you haven't mapped that out at a high level, spend a bit of time and your content will get better so that when you're posting content, so what I post in this group is very different than what I post in other groups, because what I'm posting in this group or what I'm sending to my email list, we already have a relationship. I'm aware of you, you're aware of me. What I post in other groups is really intended to make people aware of me and start to engage with my content. And when I start to think about my content that way, it gets a lot better. There's a lot more thought that goes behind your content when you start to think of it. It doesn't mean that the same content doesn't go into both places. It just means there's a different intent. And when you're aware of it, your content will get better at getting the results that you want because you're focused on those kind of things. Any questions for those who are listening to the replay? Pop your questions in. If you're on live, Kim, any questions you have, let me know. There's been lots of eyeballs going by. Understand the client's journey is valuable to be aware of too. Is that next? I've lost my video again. I hope I'm still there. Understand the client's journey is valuable. Is that next? Not sure what is that next part is about, but yes. I've done the client journey before. We've done it when we do the niching stuff. We've talked about it. So yes, I can go into depth on more on that next week potentially. But understanding the client's journey and their own journey. And that one takes a different set of questions, right? What are they going through? Right? What is going to make them move to action? And that's part of it. It's a combination of the two. So client journey, if you actually do Google client journey maps, you will be amazed at how many things, a lot after large corporations map out these client journeys as well, right? So, and there's definitely different layers that we can put on our client journey. But if you don't have the content layer yet, if you haven't really thought about how you're developing your content to manage the client journey, then your content's not working optimized. You haven't optimized your content to work at each stage. That's kind of the thought is, how do we optimize our content to work at each stage? And yes, we can get behind what is the client journey for them. What questions are they at? Where are they at? And that's really a bit of niching, right? So what's your client's problem? What's their problem? Where do they want to go? What's your promise to get there? And then what's going to make them move, right? You can have the best offer in the world and you can be nailing their promise, but if they're not ready to move, then they're not going to buy from you. It's a sweet spot I often talk about, right? Is they know, like, and trust you, your offer's in front of them. And the third component of this sweet spot is that they're ready to act. And so understanding what's going to move somebody from a want to an act is a really important thing to do. And it's going to vary based on what your business is, right? If you sell shiny objects, the want is very different than if you sell something that's a high ticket item and it's very pinpointed to what they want. So I don't know if that's answering your question, Kim. I hope so. If not, we can go a bit deeper on it. But no matter if you haven't mapped out your customer journey at all, start with this. Then we can level it up to a bit more by layering on what your niche is. But really understand that customer journey so that you can create content that resonates with them, that attracts them, that gets them to interact with you, and your work is much more focused, and your results are going to be more focused by doing that. And that's what I wanted to cover today. Again, if you're listening to the replay, #replay, let me know if you have any other questions. Kim, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you being on live. For those who came and went live, thank you for coming by. Facebook doesn't tell people about lives as much as they used to, so I find that's why I do find I get more replays on than lives. The other thing you'll notice, I'm turning all of my lives into blog posts, so you can use that information as well, and you can catch them on the replays as well. So thank you so much, Kim. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everyone who comes on and listens to the replay. If you would like to get on a call and talk about how to create your customer journey, let me know. Just send me a direct message and we will set that up. Very valuable. Thank you, Kim. I appreciate you too. Thanks. Have an amazing afternoon, everyone. Bye.